Good morning, everyone. Today on Perspectives, I'm asking, and hopefully you are too, what is it going to take to reach our young people who are involved in the gun violence that's a menace to the Port City and our nation? Well, when was the last time that you talked with a young person who is in the midst of what's going on among their peers? We're talking about gun violence, and did you ever have a frank conversation with them where you asked their opinion? How do we stop it, end it? How do we get everyone to put the guns down? Well, how do they feel about it, and are they always concerned about it? Do they talk about it? Do they think about the gun violence as they make decisions when they go to class, school events, and any gathering around other young people when they're away from school? Have you asked any of them what would their recommendation be to the elected officials, law enforcement, school officials, and community leaders? A month ago, about 75 young people, students from 13 local high schools, participated in the first YVP Summit, the Youth Violence Prevention Program, and the City of Mobile Parks and Recreation Breakthrough Teens Program. They hosted the summit at Bishop State. The roundtable discussion was an effort to elevate the voices of our youth in matters that directly affect them, an opportunity to share their experiences and potential solutions. Our guest today on Perspectives, Joshua Jones. He is the City of Mobile Police Department's Youth Violence Prevention Coordinator. And we also have two student participants in the YVP Summit, Kalia Beverly, a LaFleur High School student, and Jason Rouser, who is also a student at LaFleur High School. Talking with, listening to, and finding a way to put into action the thoughts and recommendations of our young people as we work to end gun violence in our communities. That's our desire and prayer today on Perspectives. Now we'll be right back after this quick message. And welcome back to Perspectives. Today we're talking to our young people as well as Joshua Jones, who, as mentioned, is the Youth Violence Prevention Coordinator for the Mobile Police Department's program. And we're talking with Jason Rouser and Kalia Beverly. They are our guests participating in this previous Teen Summit. Joshua, tell us what you were thinking as you put that together, because this was one of the cogs in the wheel, so to speak, of some of the things that you want to do in the community to make a difference in this violence issue. So tell us, as we set this up and get to more about the Teen Summit, what was your thought when you put that together?
Definitely. Well, first off, it's a pleasure to be here with you again, Mr.
Glad
Reynolds.
to have you.
Thank you for having us on. But my thought process when it came to organizing something like this was the idea that went back to one of the things that I said when I first got here. I don't want to be a part of an organization that makes decisions on behalf of a community that's not present at that table. And so the idea was to bring the youth to the forefront, allow them to be the voices and the catalyst for change. I don't want to take a handful of darts and throw them against the wall and hope something sticks when we can go to the source. And this was the beginning of that. We have several additional things that we want to do to bring them to the table, but for me, this was one of the first steps in that chain of events that we can do to get them to speak up and speak out.
How did the process work that day? Because you've had the first one and you've had an opportunity to look back and evaluate, but how did it work that day? Where did you get things going as far as engaging the youth?
So the whole point was get them. Once we got them there, I knew the kids would talk. You hear what I'm saying? Y'all love to talk. They love to talk. But the idea was just to get them all in the room. Break the ice. We started off with an icebreaker little game. The way they could know each other, listen to each other, hear each other. We set some ground rules, just basic ground rules of communication. So that we could respect each other, hear each other's opinions, and not be combative, just right. Open forum, and then we got into some questions, gave them opportunity to brainstorm with some of the ambassadors from Bishop State about the questions, share their thoughts, and I'm gonna be honest, man, some of the conversation, it was a tense, real conversation, and that's what we wanted. We wanted the real aspect of what their true experiences were and what they thought, and so they were able to share that. And then once the groups talked and discussed, their questions, we brought each group up to the front of the room and allowed the students to brief everybody else in the room on what they talked about. And, then we ended with, just some unifying words and, another call to action for them to go back and be ambassadors at their schools, going back to what we was talking about earlier, changing those societal norms, getting them to be the forefront of that change. And so I think it went really well, and so we're looking back on it, we'll troubleshoot some things and for the next one.
Right.
But,
well, we'll share some of that as we talk today about evaluating what happened as we get to that point in the program. But let's talk before we get to Kalia and Jason. You had roughly 75 students from 13 or so different schools.
Yes, sir.
Were there any concerns about, when you were saying, putting all of these people together? Because these are some of the kids that you want together, but
Indeed.
then some are from different areas, and
Right.
some people feel proud about where they're from. And so how did that part go?
To some extent, there was, some knowledge or so some understanding, like there's a possibility that you could have individuals from different parts of the community that may not necessarily get along with each other. But one thing that we were aware of was that in that setting, we had the control in that setting, and we set a tone in that setting. And I think they could speak to that. But when we set that tone, the tone was what it was for the rest of that symposium. And I love it because we can set the tone, and they would set the atmosphere, and they would carry that for the rest of the time. And so a lot of times we underestimate them, but when we give them the room to operate and move, they execute.
All right. Yeah. Well, both of our guests today, Kalia and Jason, are from the same high school, so we don't have that problem today with a little turf action. But let's talk about how things were from your perspective. Kalia, what made you want to participate in this at the beginning anyway?
I've always been an advocate for youth violence prevention, and to hear something about this, I did want to take part of it. To be able to sit at a table with students and with Mr. Joshua here, and to be able to talk about very important issues, it was very powerful, and it was very meaningful to me to be able to sit at a table and to actually have a free space and open minds to hear what we have to say. It was very meaningful to me and very powerful, because not a lot of us have voices to speak, and we have to have that voice to speak for ourselves. We have to have someone to speak for us. So for him to do that for us, it was very meaningful, and I very much appreciate him for doing that for us.
And when you were in the environment first, were there any concerns about where people from other schools or any of those type of issues, or where? There
were no issues. We instantly connected after the icebreaker. I mean, when they started to come in, we were like, ooh, who is that? But after the icebreaker, we instantly connected, because we were concerned about the issues that are going on in the city of Mobile, about the guns, and we just want to see each other do better.
You're on the same page. Jason, same question to you. What drew your attention to want to be a part of this?
Honestly, Mr. Josh, we had met him before at a A.B. Honor Rolls thing at school, and it was just like seeing a black man like be so powerful with his words and actually mean what he say. So when they were saying like Mr. Joshua was over like a youth prevention group, I was like, okay, that's great, because he's so powerful and he means everything he say. So going into that, it was like, okay, you're dealing with people that actually mean what they're saying, people that actually want to help. With the ambassadors interacting with us and have a conversation and dealing with youth violence, because it's taking over. And folks don't understand, like, communication is the key to life. Like, if you communicate and open your mouth, you'll be very successful.
As you looked around when you first got there, did you have any thoughts of who some of the other people were, or were you able just to be open-minded and say, look, we're here to make some things happen?
Open-minded, like always. I try to stay open-minded with anybody I meet, because over the world you're going to meet new people. So you have to stay open-minded and be open to freely talk to people. Because like I always say, I feel like communication is like the biggest point in life today. And if you communicate with somebody and be able to tell them how you feel and what's going on and what you want to do to help out, it'll always help. Like the smallest things.
Communications is the key, and that will resolve a lot of issues that we have, not only in our local community, but in the world today, if we can get people to talk. So when things got started, is this something that you all talk about among your friends when you hear the news stories or hear of people? I know we had one murder of a 16-year-old right near your high school. So is this something that you all talk about among your friends and you care about, you're concerned about?
Yes.
Honestly, yes.
Like speaking from like that type of perspective, like being a young man, though, like it's like you always want to see the better in everyone, and you have to have like role models, like people that's in front of you and people that's actually care about you. Like come from school, I come from like everyone cares. Like you don't have no one that actually don't care.
Yeah, not a lot of my friends like to talk about the situation, but I constantly tell them that these are the tough conversations we have to have in order for change to be made.
Yes.
So, yes.
Like dealing with the great leader we have, like our leader, principal, he's a great guy, Mr. Williams. And it's like he's so open, like communicating with students and having assemblies and like letting us know like you can be great as you want to be.
Right. So it's good to hear that positive reinforcement. Yes. Have you all personally lost a friend in the gun violence we've had in the city in the last 2 or 3 years? Does that have an effect on you when you say, well, that was somebody that I knew personally?
Exactly. Yes. Then you have friends like that was just gonna graduate, and it's like, dang, like we was 2 months away from walking the stage, and that's a great accomplishment. Like folks don't understand, that's a great accomplishment.
Yeah, when it comes so close to home, you take a step back and actually realize and actually think about what can I do for change to be made. That is something that stuck with me when Mr. Joshua said at the summit, he said, how can I help? And that was very meaningful. Those words are very powerful to me because when he's actually genuine and sincere of how can he help the city of Mobile to put away the guns and to prevent violence.
That's the greatest part. Like
hold that thought 1 second, Jason. We're going to take a break, and we come back and give you a chance to finish that as we talk more today with Jason Rouser and Kalia Beverly, along with Joshua Jones, our youth violence prevention coordinator of the City of Mobile Police Department. We're talking with them today on Perspectives. More in just a moment. And welcome back. We're talking today about youth gun violence as well as gun violence in general in our community. Our guests, Joshua Jones, Kalia Beverly, and Jason Rouser, as we're looking to hear from the young people to give us some direction. How do you embrace that when you're saying, let's talk to the young people for them to help us solve this problem?
You know, for me, it really goes back to when I was a child. You know, one of the things that was a constant reminder, you know, was that my voice, it was silenced, you know, that it never really was taken into consideration when it came to decisions for us, you know, and so I still consider myself a young man, so I try to still move like that. But one of the things that I really wanted to do was just bring them to the table, hear from them, let them know that their voice, it carries weight, that it holds power, and that they are the ones that will set the tone and dictate what this solution looks like. Because like I told them at the summit, you know, they're the consumers. They are the consumers. They're the ones that set the demand, you know, and whatever that demand is, you know, the industries will meet that demand because they are the consumers. And so they can dictate what's acceptable in their communities, man, and just by their voice alone.
Kalia and Jason, you both shared a little bit about knowing people who were victims of gun violence. When you evaluate what happened to them and the situations, did you come up with thoughts of how could we have prevented that? How could we have been a part of the change and that not happening? Did you have things that automatically started coming up that you were thinking about?
Communication. That's the biggest thing I stress. It's like communication and people being comfortable with going places like as in school and just being out in public, period. Like if you're comfortable with going places, you'll like be able to like get away from them type of problems.
No, definitely. When you say there are so many thoughts that roll through my mind. I could have done this. I should have done this. When you look at a person, you can tell what they're going through, and it's all about I could have said something or I could have done something to help that person, to pull them out of that hole, to prevent what happened to them. So that's how I feel about that.
And Jason, following up on that about communications, is it difficult to get some of the people who are involved in the gun violence to talk, to resolve their problems through communication?
Yes, because you have people like dealing with that life thinking like nobody actually understands and hear them. But when you have people like Mr. Josh that actually do understands and get you, and that's not one-sided, that knows like, hey, sometimes life can get hard, and it can get to the point where you feel like, oh, violence is the only way to, you know, get away from the problems. When communication and let somebody listening to that actually understand you can help. Like, I will recommend anyone dealing with Mr. Josh, like anyone. Like if you're going through anything, like him talking to you and just putting like new educational things in your head, it just help you be like, okay, I have someone like on earth that's actually understand, like it's two sides to everything.
Right, and so having steps to follow.
Yes.
So when you think about some of those people who you've known and others that you may be aware of, how do you think we can reach them to say, okay, let's talk, let's communicate, let's not use violence as a way to resolve this? How do we get to them?
I mean, approach is always key, and it's, you know, the right kind of approach would be, you know, the best option, because a lot of kids my age, we like to say that, what does talking do? Because no one is going to actually listen and understand what I'm saying. But what we fail to realize is the more that we keep it bottled up, the more corrupt our heart and our mind becomes. So it's a level of understanding, and it's a level of relationships as well. So that's how I feel, you know.
So you all saw some things in the summit, the way it was presented,
Yes.
that gave you some tools, I guess you could say, to use.
Like
Yes.
him coming to sit down table for table. Him and his partner, like they sitting down table for table and they're open and listen like, okay, yes, I understand, like, but I also want to help you. But I'm also open to listen at any concern. So if you open to listen, it's way more easy for you to tell like how you feel and what's going on. Cause it's like, okay, if you're not hearing me, how do you understand how I feel?
Right. We can't draw conclusions based on what we think
Yes.
you feel.
Yes.
So let me ask you, when it comes to the guns and so many youth having guns, is there a way to reach them to say, let's not use this as one of our ways to either decide things or resolve problems with somebody else? Is there a way to reach?
Yes, when certain classmates of mine, they're used to a certain lifestyle, and it's on a deeper level. And what we have to do is we have to take a step back and analyze what each person is going through, because everyone is different. Everyone, they follow different protocol, they follow different rules, they have different mindsets. So we have to take a step back and we have to find different ways for different people. We can't use the same
No
way.
blanket approach.
Yes, for everybody. You know what I'm
Right,
saying?
right.
And I agree, like, people have to learn how to be okay with not doing something back or being so-called punked. Like, it's okay to, like, not always retaliate and just leave it alone. Because, like, days, you're going to have hard days, but you're also going to have days where you feel like you're the best person on earth. So you have to be okay with, like, leaving things alone and not just being negative about everything. Stay positive through, like, days.
Good words there, both of you. So, Joshua, where do we go from here? We've had the first Teen Summit now, YVP, and you've gotten some great feedback and some people involved. What's the next step?
So the next step, is to continue to, communicate, listen, keep them at the table, as you just heard, from the mouth of babes, right? You just heard these great insights, and so it's important to keep them at the table. And so, you definitely will be several more summits that we'll host throughout the rest of the year, into the new school year, but also establishing these clubs, the youth violence prevention clubs, at the schools or at the community centers, and then the citywide youth advisory board, which is a vision that I've had since I taken this position, was to establish a citywide youth advisory board just for instances like this, to be able to bring them to the table, brainstorm on a macro level, get them to be advocates and voices in adult-dominated spaces so that they can speak and advocate for their community. Teach them the policies and things that are available for them to start advocating and pushing, to the officials and elected officials and, law enforcement personnel in the community. So letting them, take the lead in this effort, in this fight, while being supported by the muscle of the city or the police department.
So, somebody is watching today and either they are a young person or they are a parent. how do they get their young person involved in this operation?
So a lot of it is communicated through the schools, and so there will be opportunities for them to be connected, you know, through school or through, to the summits through the school. But also you can go to the website, the YVP website. It's at mobilepd.org/youth violence prevention or YVP. You can go to that website, you know, and we'll regularly update that with the, you know, the upcoming events and things that we have going on. But also you can easily call 251-208-6834. You know, you can call that number. You know, ask for me. You know, we figure out a way to make it happen. My phone is always ringing. So
Good.
there's parents out there. I'm looking at all the cameras. There's parents out there that's always blowing me up, and that's okay. That's what I'm here for. But there's opportunities, but a lot of it will be facilitated through the school. And you know, check that website, and y'all see the upcoming events as well.
We want to thank all three of you for being a part of this today.
Thank you.
Jason and
Thank you.
Talia, and of course, always Joshua, and we look forward to being a part of making these changes happen. And I have to say, Mr. Williams came with you today from LaFour, the principal, because he's concerned and he cares about his students as well.
Yes.
All right, well, we thank you so much for you guys being a part. And as Jason mentioned, the information there, the Youth Violence Prevention Program, YVP Summit. For more information, just go to their website there, mobilepd.org/youth violence prevention. And also on the website, there also is a speakers bureau, a link there. You could like Joshua to come and speak to your organization or group or church. Here's that phone number to call as well. Mobile Police, the police department's Office of Strategic Initiatives, and the number, as Jason mentioned, or Joshua, as I say, mentioning, I got two J's here, 208-6384. Well, thank you so much for joining us this time for Perspectives as we discuss those issues, and we're, of course, seeking solutions. Remember now, you can find all of the episodes of Perspectives on fox10tv.com, the Fox 10 app, or on our YouTube page. I'm Eric Reynolds. Have a great week ahead, and we'll see you next time.